it simply just doesn't pass a basic fairness test anymore, especially in light of the fact that the two districts who benefit mostly are Woodburn and Central. Woodburn has withdrawn with ADMW. Central needs to stay with ADMW. That would be my opinion. I can see that's not. So that would be, that's not a massive amount of money, but it is a significant amount. The problem is when we benefit with that change, others will suffer from that change because then we get less. They already make the argument that that's a pretty tough hit for them to take. I asked them to consider that they benefited for a generation. And in our case, justice delayed is justice denied, so I'm a bit frigid about that. That's one of the issues. One of the other things that the WESD has done, which I think is a benefit to our district, is that they have said, their board has said, if we're going to move to this new era, then transit dollars need to be all distributed to all of the school districts. Here's what that means. Transit dollars is a concept that started after I left the superintendency, and so I'm getting adjusted to what it means. Several years ago, the districts were told, you may all have a portion of your money distributed to you, and then you can spend it here however you want. This district had significantly less transit dollars than others, simply because there were certain things that decisions that we made. What they're suggesting now, and we're encouraging this way of thinking, is we will now distribute all of that money to you, and then you can spend it exactly how you wish. In exchange for that, they're asking that the superintendents identify critical services. And so we spent a major portion of the day on Thursday, Friday, trying to establish what are essential services. And we'll get feedback from that group work sometime this week. Then our hope from the ESD is that those districts who engage in essential services, whether they be withdrawn or not from the ESD, would purchase those services back so that they can plan ahead, which makes good sense. I mean, they don't know, for example, whether they need 15 occupational therapists or 6, and so they can hardly plan around that unless they can establish some essential services that all the districts will agree to purchase. So that's, in a nutshell, what's happening on the ESD front. There's still lots to talk about, and I will be aggressive in pursuing the interests of Central School District children in those discussions. I covered a lot in this brief time. I'd be more than happy to answer questions you have in regard to this issue.
I need to ask a tough question. You might have a list of them. So when we talked about the funding passes through, or that we said the ESD receives in our behalf, is that a pass-through mechanism where we receive funding from them in a certain quantity, or are we talking about the value of services provided?
Yes, it's a good question. The old ESD model was that they received money on our behalf from their agency, and they simply said, here are the services we provide. It also required the boards in each of the local communities to agree that those were the services we wanted. And then what we did as that mechanism is we said, okay, we have this amount of money that we can spend on behalf of our children for services in our district. And that's how that operated. So we never saw the revenue. It was simply ours to spend at a certain rate to provide services for our kids. What they're talking about now is we will give you all of that money in transit. In other words, it's just going to be passed through. And then you can choose how you want to spend it. One of the things the law changed was prior to the law, we had our local ESD. That's where we did our business. Now we can do that business with a number of ESDs, or we can go out and hire the people ourselves and we can get to our best advantage. So having the money in our control gives us more latitude in how to spend it wisely for our kids. So that's been a big change.
Okay, so that's just, in addition to the weighted issue versus real numbers issue, that's
Right.
the other change that it's now not, we're not talking about the value of services, but the actual cash transfer.
Right.
Okay.
So lots of changes going on there, and I'll continue to keep you up to speed on what's happening with that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So does this, if now we can shop around and get services from other ESDs, is that causing them to, in essence, be a competitiveness within the various ESDs to, on what services they may be focusing on providing as opposed to another
Yeah,
ESD?
remains to be seen. I expect them of cluey and ready. And I don't mean that in the worst possible sense of that. I think they all know how much each charges for service. I don't think there'll be a big difference there. The big difference would be if districts opt to employ their own. In a school district the size of Central, that may be possible in some areas. In school districts the size of Falls City, where they need 18 hours of occupational therapy a year, they need the ESD to be healthy. And of course, those smaller districts hope that we remain because of the economy of scale that gets that service for them a bit cheaper than so that's kind of where we are at this point. It'll be ongoing for the remainder of this year. We will be back to the board in January, where this board will have to make some decisions in regard to these matters, but I didn't want to dump all that on you at one time. So that you give some thought to that and also give me some feedback if you think we're not going in the right direction yet. You also have in your packet,
Just before you go on,
yes, sir.
I've got a couple of questions. So is there anything we can go back and recover what they should have given us since they held on to the weighted money for how many years?
So I like the way you think about that.
And then next, okay, so that's question one. The second question is, the people that opt out, one of the things you said before is if somebody opts out and they come back to services, there ought to be some kind of charge, or, it shouldn't be that they can just come and purchase it straight, there should be some, they've got additional revenues and weighted money, so there should be, that's just thought. And to that end, if somebody opts out in the future or opts back in, what kind of things do you think that should have to happen for those kind of things to happen?
Well, unfortunately, the law has already dictated that for us. So that my understanding is that if they opt out and they find that they aren't doing better by having made that decision, they may annually opt back in. And they opt back in and opt back in. So they're welcome to come back anytime they wish.
No vote on the board.
Exactly. They have no vote on the board when they're out. But if they choose to come back in, we can't bother them from coming back. The answer to your other question is, quite frankly, I'm disappointed in the answer so far. Because the answer so far is their intention to charge the same for their services regardless of whether they're members or not. I'm working on that. That also doesn't seem reasonable. However, their answer to me so far is, in order for us to capture the economy of scale, we can't make decisions to dissuade people from purchasing services here. If we dissuade those who've gone out from purchasing back services, it will cost you more money because we will lose their business. We will raise our costs to you. So that's their thinking, and I continue to invite them to think discussion with that. But there is some substance to what they're saying as well.
Right.
So,
At the same time, if they've opted out, they can't get additional needed money, there should, you know, the potential,
they're purchasing powers.
correct.
Right. And I have been very clear that I believe that when this board decides that your purchasing power is better, you will need to make the same decision. That there needs to be something to encourage this board to see this as a financial benefit to everyone. There's really only two things in my view about service. Is how much does it cost and how good is it? If it's an excellent service at the right cost, for example, it's something that's required of us to provide. You know, it's not like we're shopping at Nordstrom. We're shopping for the legal requirements to provide services to our citizens. Ongoing discussion. You will also have in your packets the work that's been generated out of Dr. Ruby's office for the superintendent search, community input on qualities and qualifications. And you can see that that's going to be moving very quickly. We have circulated this document now to our building principals, get on their newsletters, get up on their reader boards, and hopefully Craig will publish an article on this matter as well, inviting the community to come and give input about the professional qualities and personal qualifications of seeking the superintendent. We are going to run Dr. Boogie pretty ragged next week. He is scheduled to meet with the Lions basement of the Elks Lodge on, let's see, that would be Monday. This has been fairly typical of superintendent searches where we were reaching out to the service clubs. Oftentimes, that's a group of people that want to have some kind of input into qualities and qualifications. Then you can see on Tuesday of next week, there will be a staff meeting at Talmadge Municipal Library early in the morning. And that's an open invitation to the public as well as to the staff of Talmadge. We typically try to get teachers within the workday if we possibly can. This actually is a little bit before their classes begin, because it seems to be the way we get the best turnout from internal input. They will meet with the administrator. He will meet with the administrators right in the morning, and then the custodians, cooks, bus drivers, instructional assistants. Those are a hard group of people to get to because we generally can't capture them after school. We can't capture them early morning, especially because they're on their route. So we get the sort of the right time of day for them, and he will be with them at that time. Then a staff meeting at Monmouth Elementary School that afternoon, also an open invitation for the community to join them. It's especially helpful, I think, in most weeks when the parents of kids in that school can come. That usually turns out to work out nicely. On Wednesday will be a staff community meeting at Henry Hill, and a combination of Henry Hill and IES staff. He's been asked for a community forum. This would be an evening meeting in which all members of the community would be invited to come right here at the high school cafeteria. Then I don't know exactly how he's going to do this. It looks like he's scheduled to get into the Ford Family Foundation Leadership Group later in the evening, probably go directly from this meeting to that one, and go come into the middle of their meeting. And then on Thursday will be a staff and community meeting here in the Central High School Library. A coffee chat with the Department of Ed out at the university at 10, meeting with a Rotary. Then the all-hands meeting, are basically the majority of the public employees in the district. It's not police chiefs, managers, the city, and those sort of. And then I asked